Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell with news and views from the Nefarium on Thursday, April 18th, 2019. Um, I'm a little subdued this week, more than normal, about the news and views because earlier this week we all saw the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris burning. And it's difficult for me to describe how that affected me personally, as I'm sure it affected a lot of you. But it affected me deeply at a kind of almost symbolic level. I don't know, or iconic level, because I've personally believed that Western civilization has been under deliberate attack for quite some time, both from within its own borders, so to speak, and from without. And as I was watching the cathedral burn, I couldn't help but be struck by the fact also that inevitably, regardless of what the story is about the fire, that inevitably there were going to be conspiracy theories about it. And of course, they've already emerged in just a few days. And we will probably never know the truth. And even if governments now, and this is, I think, one of the important things to take away from this whole story, even if the French government now were to tell the truth, the cynicism and skepticism within the culture at large, having their own governments stand idly by in the West while their culture is taken down and destroyed, uh, and governments allowing them to do this. Basically, the cynicism and skepticism is so widespread now that even if a government, in this case the French government, were to tell the truth, I doubt very much that it would be believed. In other words, they've lost the trust of their people. And that's always, always a dangerous thing. But nonetheless, the conspiracy theories are beginning to emerge. And I want to talk about some of them, and in the hopes of restoring some sanity. And I've linked a Zero Hedge article, or will link a Zero Hedge article in the description when this posts. And he points out a video. I saw this video. It emerged literally within a day or two after the fire, apparently of a fireman walking in the bell towers. All right. And then, of course, the conspiracy theories started. In some versions of this video, the man looks like he's dressed in typical Muslim costume. In other versions of the video that I've seen, it looks like he's dressed as a yellow vest, one of the French protesters. And I couldn't help but thinking, as people were leaping to conclusions, oh, the Muslims did it, the yellow vest did it, how easy it would be for anyone wanting to take this as a crisis of opportunity, or even if it was a deliberate fire and a false flag of some sort, how easy it would be to manipulate perceptions in this case. But the video is out there. And the article at Zero Hedge mentions this as part of what he calls Update 2. And he states, quote, ever careful to watch for false flags and conspiracy theory concerns, video is emerging of a gilet jaune in black clothes at one of the two towers half an hour after the start of the fire at Notre Dame. One definite way to disenfranchise the yellow vests as they crush French autocracy would be to set them up as the fall guys for this national disaster. Surely that's not possible. So in other words, we don't know who that figure is. And we will probably never know, and never know with anything approaching the certitude of a truth, who that individual that's shown in the towers are. And as a result, the conspiracy theories thrive. And this is my problem also with the official story. I want to get down to something that The Zero Hedge article gets to shortly after that mention of that video. The article states, quote, Paris prosecutor Remy Heitz stressed early indications suggest the fire was accidental, as he added, quote, nothing indicates a deliberate act, unquote. Now, this was the story that was being put out even as the cathedral was burning. And my problem with that story is, how do you know it's an accident when you haven't conducted any investigation? And now, just today, as I was kind of going through all of my inbox, and I want to thank all of you people that are sending articles and notices and updates about the Notre Dame fire. But one of the things that I noticed in my inbox was now they're blaming an electrical short, a short circuit that started the fires. But on the other hand, there are now stories beginning to emerge from the cathedral staff, the clergy and other staff, lay staff at the cathedral, that the electrical system there, the alarm system there, was as good as they could make it. It was rather thorough. And there are people that are even questioning how that structure, the wooden parts of the structure, could get burning so quickly. And we also have reports of a couple of witnesses. Apparently, again, these stories are beginning to come out, so it's difficult to verify them at this stage, that some witnesses heard an explosion. But nonetheless, my problem here is, how are you able to determine so quickly that this was an accident without doing an investigation? And indeed, this has become the official narrative now. All right. Anybody questioning this narrative, as we are going to see in the rest of this article, is quickly shut off. And I know of a couple of instances that people sent me videos and so on that showed one particular network news media source in this country shutting off people that were raising questions. But anyway, I want to get to that question of an accidental versus a deliberately set fire, because this Zero Hedge article mentions something very interesting and very intriguing to me. Quote, Time columnist Christopher J. Hale set off a firestorm of speculation when he tweeted that a friend who works at the cathedral told him, quote, cathedral staff said the fire was intentionally set, unquote. And then there's a picture in the Zero Hedge article. You can see it here of his tweet where he states that. So you can check out that Zero Hedge article and see that screen capture of the tweet. And then the article continues. Hale deleted the tweet just a few minutes later. Was he lying about what he had been told? Coming from a professional journalist, that doesn't seem likely. Well, again, you know, we've seen the news media these days just go on this tear of trying to steer stories. So I don't have much faith in professional journalism anymore, unlike Zero Hedge. So, you know, factor that in. But nonetheless, the tweet was there and then it's not. Zero Hedge goes on to say, coming from a professional journalist, that doesn't seem likely. Instead, it is much more likely that Hale quickly figured out that he said something that he wasn't supposed to say. A YouTube video, and here's another one for you folks. I saw this one on TV. A YouTube video that purportedly contains audio of Muslims celebrating the fire at the Notre Dame Cathedral has sparked a lot of speculation. But at this point, there doesn't appear to be any way to verify the authenticity of the video. Right. Okay. And even if the video is authentic, how do you know that the people in it are really Muslims? You know, they could be crisis actors. Anybody can get in front of a screen that has a beard and say Allahu Akbar, you know, and blame it on the Muslims. You know, there's so much going on here that is just plain weird. All right, and continuing now, I mentioned in my blog about the Notre Dame fire that there was a fire at Paris's second largest church, Saint-Sulpice, just a few days prior to the fire at Notre Dame. And at the time, there was very little information that was coming out about the fire at Saint-Sulpice. I have an interest in that church because I like to play pipe organs, and that particular church has the largest clavier Cole pipe organ in France, and he was a fairly famous French builder. So I've been trying to watch the Saint-Sulpice story, but other than that initial reporting of a few accidental fires, of an accidental fire, there wasn't much more about the Saint-Sulpice story except till this article in Zero Hedge. And again, the article states, while Notre Dame is undoubtedly the most well-known landmark to be affected, Paris' second largest church, Saint-Sulpice, briefly burst into flames on March 17th, the fire damaging doors and stained glass windows on the building's exterior. Police later reported that the incident had not been an accident, unquote. And this is why, and I'll be blunt and honest, I have difficulty believing that the Notre Dame fire was an accident. And the reason I have difficulty is when you start digging into the amount of attacks on churches in France that have been carefully kept out of the news, it's staggering. And that's the problem. The context, in other words, of this event cries out against the idea that it's all just an accident. And the article states this, quote, in Nimes, near the Department of the Gard, near the border with Spain, the church of Notre Dame des Enfants was desecrated in a particularly odious way, with vandals painting a cross with human excrement, looting the main altar and the tabernacle, and stealing consecrated hosts, which was discovered later among piles of garbage. Likewise, the church of Notre Dame in Dijon, in the east of the country, suffered the sacking of the high altar, and hosts were also taken from the tabernacle, scattered on the ground, and trampled. Now, again, everybody might be thinking, or I suspect most people will be thinking, well, it's the Muslims. Well, wait a minute, folks. It could equally be Satanists. It could be people that are truly into some very, very black arts. But the point is, we don't know who, but we do know that these attacks have been being carried out in France against a number of churches. Now, final note here. In this article, towards the end of this Zero Hedge article, it states, quote, on Monday, this was the day of the fire, even anchors at Fox News had apparently been instructed that any speculation about who started the Notre Dame Cathedral fire must be immediately shut down. These days, there is very little difference between Fox News and the other major news networks, and that's very unfortunate. On another note, I find it very interesting that at one point on Monday, a YouTube algorithm linked the fire at Notre Dame Cathedral with the 9/11 attacks, and then YouTube, of course, later said, well, that was all a mistake and an accident. So in other words, the narrative is being put out that this is an accident when the context does not suggest that it was, when no investigation had been performed at the time of the fire in Notre Dame, and yet they were already concluding it was an accident. And when there is a certain amount, although not very much at this point, and it's of a quality that we really don't know what to think, but there is a certain amount of eyewitness or witness testimony that indicates that there is a question about the accident narrative. As I said, there have been a couple of reports from in certain places on the internet, again, hard to validate, of people that were on the cathedral staff hearing explosions and so on. We had that tweet by Christopher Hale, saying that the cathedral staff said that it was deliberate, and so on and so forth. And if that's the case, then the cathedral staff are being told to shut up. So there's lots here that is indicative, I think, that there is something very suspicious about the Notre Dame fire, but it's only a prima facie suspicion, and investigation has not been done. But the problem, as I said, is that this is an iconic event, and at this point, the governments of the West have been so locked into their agenda over and literally overriding their own people, as we see with the yellow vest protests in France, that any official report, even if it does tell the truth now, is not going to be believed. And that's a very bad situation. It's going to require paying a lot of attention now to this story to determine what the truth may or may not be. It may have been an accident, and it may have been an accident accompanied with lots of strange stuff that can be eventually explained. Personally, at this stage, I doubt it very, very much and highly that this is the case. I do tend to think that there's too much suspicious here, but time is going to tell. But that doesn't take away the sadness of the event, folks, and that's the real message here. And like I put it in the blog, we're in the process of having our culture destroyed. We can use it or we can lose it. And sadly, so far, the governments and the elites of the West seem to me to be intent on losing it. Anyway, that's it for today's news and views. Tomorrow, there is no vid chat, folks. The vid chat will be next Friday, a week from tomorrow, and that will be the 2 o'clock in the afternoon European African members time zone vid chat. That will be next Friday, a week from tomorrow. There is no vid chat tomorrow. Some people have been asking me about dialogues, and the dialogue for this month, I am planning to do one. It's just I've been having trouble scheduling originally the person I wanted to schedule for this month, and so have had to get somebody else. But I did get somebody that I think you're going to enjoy, so watch out for that. Anyway, we'll see you on the flip side, everybody. Bye-bye, and God bless.